Okay, the hour being just a little bit past 9 a.m., I want to welcome everyone to a pre-meeting to a very important hearing that we are going to engage in today, really the first hearing of three that this commission will be having as a result of our responsibilities under Act 5 of 2017. We're going to enter into very important work. And I think before we get started, why don't we do just a brief roll call to go on the record as making sure everyone's in attendance. Mr. Treasurer, Vice Chair.
Good morning. I'm Joe Torsella, Pennsylvania State Treasurer, Vice Chair of this commission.
Commissioner Bloom.
Again. Hi, I'm still Jim Bloom, and I'm the appointee of the State Senate Democrats.
Commissioner Torbett.
Mike Torbert, retired, ex-portfolio manager with Meridian Core States First Union. Same phone number the whole time.
Thank you. And we have a substitute today for Commissioner Gallagher, and that is Steve Nichols, who has been in the pension realm for public policy for many years as an elected official and a consultant. Steve, would you like to introduce yourself and give the rest of the commissioners and our audience some information on your background, please?
Glad to. Thank you. I'm Steve Nickel. I'm a recovering politician. I was a state legislator for 18 years. And during those 18 years, I served on the Board of Trustees for the Public School Employees Retirement System. I retired in 2008 from the legislature. Since then, I've been working as a director of retirement programs for the Pennsylvania State Education Association. And in addition to that, I'm on the pension board for the PSEA pension plan, and I'm a director of the Frederick Mutual Insurance Company.
And thank you, Steve. Thank you for being in attendance today. I'm sure that we've all, we're going to hear some really interesting testimony when we get started at 10 o'clock. I do appreciate the fact that we got started a little bit earlier. I thought it was important for us to gather and just iron some things out, take a look at what the course is going to be, make sure we're okay with dates of subsequent hearings and potential meetings, just discuss among ourselves collectively if we really want to hold that meeting on August 16th and see what we'll try to accomplish. And I think really just try and stay on the same page. The first thing I want to talk about, and Susan, did you have the ability to pass out the information on Act 5? I want to talk about what the Commission has been tasked with, our duties and responsibilities under the Act. And, you know, I think that today's hearing especially is hitting on a major section of what we are tasked with doing. When we review Act 5, the establishment of the legislation, we are here as the Public Pension Management and Asset Investment Review Commission. And there's a number of topics that are clearly defined, our duties. So number one, to study the performance of current investment strategies. And we're going to take a look at that, that responsibility really in hearing number two. The investment strategies, to study the cost and benefits of both active and passive investment strategies in relation to future investment activities for both of the pension systems. And I think we'll be really looking at that in hearing 2 and hearing 3. But today, this commission is charged with improving investment fee transparency on alternative investments as specified in the standardized reporting guidelines of the Institutional Limited Partners Association. As well, we are tasked with implementing the recommendations of the Society of Actuaries Blue Ribbon Panel on stress testing. So today specifically, we have got testifiers that will be very important in understanding exactly how we might end up fulfilling our responsibility in that regard. And I'd just like to talk just briefly about the people that we'll be hearing from today. So, great, thank you, Susan. So today when we start with some really some tremendous expertise in the areas of transparency and stress testing. First of all, Dr. Ludovic Philippou is an associate professor of finance from the said business school from the University of Oxford. He'll speak on the importance of transparency and lowering costs and aligning interests. And I've had an opportunity to read some of what Dr. Ludovic has written and his perspective, and I think it's important for the commission. I think it's good information that we will hear from him, and I think it's important for our boards to understand the great depth of his research. On the perspectives on transparency in the public sector pensions, Jennifer Choi. She is the managing director of the Institutional Limited Partners Association, which is mentioned in the legislation. Laura Lee Gray, principal of Leodoran Financial, also worked with the Institutional of Limited Partners Association. And Renee Asfan, Senior Investment Officer of Rhode Island Treasury. And I can tell you that Rhode Island has gone an awfully long way in improving their transparency as far as their pension system is concerned. After the break, we're going to get into conversations on stress testing. We're going to hear from David Drain. They're doing a lot of research on stress testing. He is with the Pew Charitable Trust. Dr. Chester Spatt, Carnegie Mellon University and Massachusetts Institute of Technology. The third panel in the second half of the day includes Ken Kent. He's a principal consulting actuary for Chiron. This state has utilized Chiron as an actuarial resource in the past, and we're interested to hear Ken Kent's perspective. Bob Stein, former chair of the Society of Actuaries Blue Ribbon Panel, and again, I will point out the fact that our commission is specifically charged with implementing strategies of that panel. And then lastly, Joseph Newton, who's a pension market leader with Gabriel Roeder Smith and Company. At this point in time, I think that there's been a tremendous amount of work that's been done. I would take any commentary or questions from any of the other commissioners or their substitutes. Mr. Treasurer?
Thank you, Chairman. Number one, just to echo a couple of things you said, starting with the last, which is thanks to the many staff who've helped put today's hearing together, from the commission as well as staff for the various commissioners and the Treasury. It is, I agree with you, it's a really impressive lineup on some really important topics. Number two, to thank PSERS for agreeing that today's hearing, given how impressive that lineup of testifiers is and how much expertise they bring, qualifies as continuing education under, I don't think it's provisions of Act 5, I think it's a previous act. But in any case, for everyone here from the systems or as trustees, want to note that if you didn't know that already, and thank PSERS for their courtesy in that regard. And finally, to echo what you said substantively about, and I do think Act 5 is quite clear about our tasks from the studying the performance, looking at active versus passive, identifying $1.5 billion in savings. But among those are the subjects of today, both transparency and the stress testing proposals by the Blue Ribbon panel. And although I think we sometimes have the tendency to think of the later topics as being meatier, I think today's topics are hugely important and ones that I think we can make some real progress on. You know, the interest in transparency is not solely as a spectator sport, but because, as we all know, what you don't measure can't be managed, and that when we're looking at the economics of this, it's important for all of us to understand exactly what they are, and it's a real challenge to do in some of the cases of the alternative investments. So, underscoring the importance of the subject matter of today, and with gratitude for the staff and fellow commissioners for having us off to such a great start. Thank you.
Steve?
Yeah, my principal, Bertie Gallagher, asked me on two subjects if I could follow up. One, he sent an email on July 18th to Susan Boyle asking if he could get some kind of an idea of where the final report is, what's been done to date, and who's doing what. What are we looking forward to in terms of the final report, and when it's all actually going to be put together and who's doing it?
So the commission is charged with 6 months from the date of our organizational meeting, which was May 30th. So prior to November 30th, the commission will deliver a report. We have entered into an agreement with a consultant, and Commissioner Gallagher has had an opportunity to speak with him. We'll just talk in a few minutes about a meeting that we have on the agenda for August 16th, and potentially getting an update from Dr. Ashby Monk, who will be producing the document for the commission. He will be aggregating the testimony. An expert, doctorate from Oxford, a graduate of Princeton University, and has worked on the Australian system as well as the Canadian system. His perspective, I think, is appreciated by all of the commissioners, and I'm sure will be helpful in aggregating the testimony.
Appreciate that. I followed up on Dr. Monk, and from what I've read online, I'm quite impressed.
He will be visiting Pennsylvania and visiting both systems. I'm not sure the date on that. Is the Joint State Government Commission know the dates of that when Dr. Monk will be here?
I believe it's the August 13th, 14th, 15th, or 14th, 15th, 16th, around those dates, and he'll be meeting with the different.
Thank you, Glenn. And you know, we have on our calendar something that was a point of discussion for today, and that was keeping a meeting that we have tentatively scheduled for August 16th. It was my thought that that the commission have an opportunity, since Dr. Monk will be here, to visit with him and have him give us an update. So if the 16th works for a period of time when he will be here, I think it would be important for us to potentially keep the meeting that we have scheduled for August 16th. It's not my intent to have a meeting without substance, but if we have the ability to meet with our consultant in person at that time, I think that it would be my recommendation that we keep the meeting. Is there any discussion on that point? Vice Chair, are you for that effort?
Sure, Chairman, and we just confirming that he would be available to have a meeting with us on that coincides with the date we're holding. So happy to do that.
So great. As I mentioned earlier, I think that we put out a notice that would be a potential meeting date. And look, if we don't have something substantive to do on the 16th, but I think the fact that our consultant will be in town, why don't we table that and make sure that we're getting within the next week or so, getting notice out whether or not we will indeed be able to meet with Dr. Monk and then follow through.
We will make sure that happens. Thanks.
Great.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Steve.
I had the second item that Bernie asked me to follow up on, and that was a letter that you had sent with regard to Pew. And I don't think there's any problem at all with regard to Pew testifying and us giving us a letter on that. It was the second part of that letter where he had some concern with just, if they are lobbyists. I mean, they lobbied heavily. They lobbied, I understand, may have actually written the language that created this commission. They lobbied heavily in the General Assembly for it. And we're taking an action that exempts them from disclosing lobbying activities. And just wanted to understand there's no problem with them testifying. And I looked at the federal standards, and they can disseminate nonpartisan analysis and other kind of contacts with legislators. There's nothing going to question their tax status. It's just a concern as to just what is their potential educational role, because I know in certain points Pew may be advocating for things which I or Bernie Gallagher don't necessarily agree with them right down the line. On much of what they're doing, yes, but not everything.
So I think with much of the testimony that we'll hear, there will be varied opinion. Pew has done a tremendous amount of research in the area of stress testing. But I'll go back to 2 points that there's 2 letters that I had written as the chairman because time was of the essence. And the first one was a request by the executive director of PCERS, Glenn Grell. He asked for an additional testifier at this hearing, and it was a Dr. Jenkinson, who is a colleague of Dr. Ludovic. We want to be very accommodating. After a subsequent conversation with Glenn, Dr. Jenkinson was unable to testify, but we would open up testimony for him at a future hearing if that were the case. As far as the Pew letter goes, as you have mentioned, they do operate in different capacities, and one of them is lobbying. But we want to make sure that we were delineating the fact that they will come to this commission as a consultant. As I mentioned, that they have done a tremendous amount of research in the area of stress testing, and I think their perspective will be important for the commissioners to hear. And as I've mentioned, differing opinion, I'm sure, will come forward in future testimony from other testifiers, but to extend them an opportunity to make sure that we are listening to them in the role not as lobbyists, but as a consultant for the commission. I thought it was important to issue that letter, and certainly we would offer that same accommodation to anyone else who is testifying on various topics.
Now, this would exempt them, I gather, including under the federal law with regard to substantial activity standards. Will it also affect their reporting on their lobbyist disclosure under Pennsylvania law?
Yeah, so we're not expecting them to come to this commission as a lobbyist, but rather as a consultant testifying on the work that they've done as far as stress testing.
So essentially, the commission is essentially employing them as a consultant.
So if there is reimbursement for cost for their testimony, that is the only compensation that they would receive. They're coming to us, as with other testifiers, on the work that they have done, presented, and studied.
Yeah, I guess the concern I'd like to express is that kind of this blanket allowing them to have a potential role without having very well defined, as opposed to the commission itself approving specific requests of Pew. In that Pew is a lobbyist, and there's just concern as to just what actually they'll be doing. But I just wanted to express that up front.
Thank you very much for your concern, and the commission, when they listen to their testimony, that will be duly noted.
Chairman, the joint state government just confirms there's no reimbursement to Pew for their testimony today.
Thank you. Is there any other conversation in that regard? Okay, I think I'd like to move on next to the broad topics of our future hearings, and we have to do a little bit of work in that regard. So today's July 30th hearing, we understand, is going to be about best practices on transparency and fee reporting and stress testing. The next hearing, which will take place on September 20th, 2018, and in a conversation earlier, we're going to try to accommodate, and if the Joint State Government Commission please make a note of this. We started early today on a Monday morning, and I think that's good and proper. But we do want to realize that some people are traveling a good distance to be here. So we'll try and start these hearings at 10 o'clock. I thought it was important for us to have this brief organizational meeting today. And since our testifiers were starting at 10, we asked people to come in at 9 o'clock. But we should be mindful of people's time and schedule and commute, so we can start hopefully at 10 o'clock at subsequent hearings. The second hearing on September 20th will be on analysis of Pennsylvania pension funds on the following, and that we will evaluate the fund's assets, investment strategies, investment performance, fees, costs, and procedures against the established benchmarks. Now, we do have a list of testifiers that have been brought forward. And as I mentioned earlier, we want to be very accommodating at making sure that other testifiers, as they come forward, might be heard. And I paid a special deference to Commissioner Gallagher, who has submitted a list from the Joint State Government Commission. Do you have any contact with testifiers that Commissioner Gallagher has brought forward? Okay.
Yeah.
So, I think that as a matter of time, September 20th, we still have got some time, but I think within the next, why don't we say 2 weeks, we start to get a better grip on who the testifiers on that September 20th hearing may be. And as I mentioned, I had sent a letter to Executive Director Grell and let him know that if he's got a testifier, that he can be in contact with them, number one, see if they're willing to testify. And also, my letter from Commissioner Grell mentions the fact that we are holding these hearings, and we've got some topics that we want to stick to. We need to stick on task. These discussions on what we're tasked to do, I think, can go in many different directions. But for the second hearing, we're going to concentrate on the analysis of Pennsylvania pension funds in the areas that I just discussed. So if there's any commissioners that have got an idea on other testifiers, we will utilize the logistical support of the Joint State Government Commission to go ahead and make sure that we've got a great lineup. The third hearing.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Just quickly, will we be inviting the systems to come in for testimony?
Yes. In fact, we've had discussions, and it is our understanding at this point in time, and both systems have exhibited and communicated a desire to testify, and I believe we'll have them testify at the third hearing. So the third hearing, scheduled at some point in time in October, is going to be on cost savings initiatives for both pension boards, outlining the costs, benefits, and limitations of each option. Again, we've got a list of potential testifiers. And Susan, did you pass out this brief agenda for the rest of the commissioners so they can take a look? I am again requesting that if there's any commissioners that have got relationships or have got an idea on who testifiers would be, we should be utilizing the commission and the Joint State Government Commission to reach out to those testifiers, see if they're willing, and seeing if they have expertise in the topics that we've got outlined here. We also have to hone in and set a date for the October 18th 2018 hearing, and Glenn, I'll ask you this. We understand that Commissioner Gallagher could not be here today, and a conversation with him, I wanted to accommodate him and make sure that he would be at the two subsequent hearings. I think when we looked at a number of dates, it became apparent that there's no commissioner that will be able to be at all three hearings. So I just want to make sure that we're accommodating Commissioner Gallagher and picking a date in October that he will be able to attend.
Right. I believe that he can make, we have to look back at his list, but I think that he is available for the other dates that had been suggested.
Including August 16th.
I believe, yeah, I think this is the only one that I'm aware of that he could not be here.
Great. Okay, is there any other further questions that we've got as far as orders of business go from any of the commissioners?
Chairman, just to clarify, is the hope, you said 2 weeks from now, or did you mean 2 weeks from 2 weeks before the hearing is when we're hoping to finalize things in roughly 2 weeks from now for the next hearing? Was that the notion?
Yeah, so when we're talking about the hearing on October.
Oh, no, sorry. The September one, we're looking at finalizing things within the next 2 weeks, or?
Yeah, I think that if any commissioners have got an idea on additional testifiers, that within the next 2 weeks we should submit them to the Joint State Government Commission so that they can find out the interest in those parties testifying.
Makes sense. Thank you.
Is there anything else that we need to bring forth as business at this meeting? Great. I hate to keep the audience waiting, but we've got some time prior to our first testifier starting to present at 10 o'clock. It's 9:30 right now. I just want to give some credit to the Joint State Government Commission. We had ended up switching rooms into the House of Representatives for accommodating this hearing. We are having testifiers come in here via Skype or other mechanisms. Glenn, do you think we're going to be prepared here, and are we okay as far as the logistics go?
Yeah, it seems so. The website our website has the live stream up right now, so everything seems good to go.
Great. And from Dr. Ludovic, has his testimony been submitted in writing? Do we have copies of his testimony?
Yeah. Oh, well, we have his presentation, which is in the packet that we got. We don't have any written testimony from him.
Okay, great. So we're all in we're all in possession of the presentation that Ludovic will be presenting to the commission, and I think we're in pretty good shape. So if it's, I think at this point in time, we'll just take a brief recess.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner
I have
Bloom?
one, I guess it's point of order. There have been no minutes distributed from the first meeting we had. Is that, is there a reason for that, or you think it's not necessary?
So at our first organizational meeting, at that point in time, we did not have a stenographer, and I'm not sure who the keeper of the minutes were. Glenn, can you comment on that?
We actually did distribute a minutes summary document to the commissioners shortly after the meeting.
I'll take it. I'll take a look for it. There's been quite a bit distributed.
So, Commissioner Bloom, thank you very much, and I am in possession right now of the minutes and the attendance from that first meeting, and I think it would be appropriate if when we come back, just before we start testimony, we'll get you a copy, and then we'll approve those minutes as submitted. Great.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome. Okay, are there any other questions at this time? Okay, why don't we convene in 15 minutes, and then we'll approve those minutes, and we'll be prepared for our first testifier. Thank you.